This year, my surfing has been in a rut. I feel like I haven't progressed at all. The first year that I felt that way in at least a decade. If you're new here, my name is Kale, I'm a surfer and a filmmaker, and here you'll find all sorts of epic surf content like tutorials to help you surf better, important reviews, and more. So subscribe down below and join me on Instagram at Kale's Broccoli. I guess it's something that's part and parcel with the sport that is totally dependent upon ever-changing, inconsistent playing fields. Surfing is so unique in that way. The ocean changes every day, and the surfing we do thus needs to change in alignment with the conditions. It's like being a weightlifter and rocking up to the gym to find that there are only kettlebells available on one day, rower machines on the other, and then on a lucky day, the bar and the plates magically appear for a couple of hours with the right tide. On a recent trip up north, I managed to catch up with elite surf coach Stace Galbraith. Stace trains some of the top surfers in the world, including Millie Emanuel, Ethan Ewing, Mitch Cruz, and more. We did a couple of training sessions together to have a look at why my surfing stagnated in 2020. The first session we did, I was surfing my normal go-to shortboard to give Stace a sense of where I was at. To be honest, I had an okay session, but the feedback was something I wasn't expecting. Hey!
I think our tendency as surfers, particularly at like the intermediate level and above, once you've mastered catching your own waves and generating your own speed, you just want more speed. And what smaller, lighter boards such as Epoxies can do is give you that instant feeling of going faster. They're a lighter construction, they turn a lot easier, and they are generally fun to ride. But you've just got to be careful that at a certain wave height, you take a look at your whole quiver. There's certain waves where you want to generate your own speed, and then there's certain waves where you want to harness your own speed. So epoxies are really good at generating speed, but they generally only get to fourth gear. They don't go faster than that, even though they feel like they are.
One thing that comes out of that for me is I have ridden those shorter boards and the little, I wouldn't say as fishy as I've gone in the last couple of years, but they've sort of gradually, I've sort of squashed my boards. And one thing that I've really struggled with is getting back off those boards and still being able to do the turns that I want to do. And not just in like the bigger surf, but in moderate surf and stuff. I found I do struggle on those longer boards.
It's a hard transition. That's why I'm always very wary of it when I'm training sort of the guys and girls at the top level, because unfortunately at the pro tour level, feeling good is not always looking good. If you're just running your board out for a surf after work and it feels good, I generally wouldn't worry about it too much. Everyone, if it feels good, just go with it. But if you're at that top level, feeling good, that's what the guys have and girls have me there for, is to just give them a second opinion from the beach angle. And yeah, you've got to be careful. And one way you can kind of help get out of that, I guess you could say, is riding perhaps too long. So I don't know, let's just use basic numbers as an example. Say you usually ride a 6.0, you spent a few years riding a 5.10 fish, and you're looking to kind of get back on a longer board again. I'd grab a 6.1 or a 6.2 just to have that sort of bring the expectation down a little bit and just get used to kind of steering the board around rather than like whipping it around. Then when you jump back on your 6.0, if that's what you're riding, it'll feel alive.
Our next session, Stace brought along one of his clients' boards, a 5.9 or 5.10 Chili, a knife of a thing for my standards, and convinced me to give it a go. and it was quite an adjustment, I won't lie.
I think it's all about expectations. So if you make that transition and you expect to set the world on fire straight away, chances are, you'd probably be let down. Does that mean you're surfing bad? Definitely not. It's just a feeling. And if you're used to feeling that smaller, shorter, more responsive board, and you jump on a more traditional kind of, I think we had you on a 5'10", and you've been riding a 5'6", maybe. That's a big jump, So that's going to take a few sessions, and that was a funny one where we actually had, classic coach versus surfer clash. I was standing there with a good friend of mine. Actually, he'd just come in, and he's a great surfer, good judge of a surfer too, and he was sort of like, oh, your mate's out there ripping it, and I thought so too. And you came in and you were a bit bummed, I'm going slow and this board doesn't turn, and I thought the opposite. I thought you were matching the wave speed quite well. And then when you were putting the board up for a re-entry or a cutback, spray was flying everywhere. So I guess, that's just classic surf coaching in the modern era.
It seems like there's a big trend for a lot of, I guess just in the surfing sphere in general, of people talking about this sort of transition back to longer boards. It's like we started there in the 90s, and then in 2000s, we sort of shortened and compressed everything. Now it seems like we're going back. Why do you think that is?
Kelly Slater. Well, look, he's such a powerful force, right? Anything that he does, people are interested in knowing more about it. So, for instance, and that was why I made the comment earlier about longer rail line. That depends how the board is shaped. He's been riding I'd have to, double check this, but it's around about a 5'6", I think, Weber quad. But instead of having a lot of curve through the board, which means there's not much rail in the water, it's actually really flat with quite a straight rail line and no real nose. So it probably rides like a 5'11". And the surfing he's doing on that might be the best in the small stuff I've seen him in a long time. So I think he sets a lot of the trends there. The trends in surfing with the participant rates are climbing. And with that, you're going to have a lot of beginner and intermediate surfers. And like I mentioned earlier, a shorter, wider, lighter surfboard is generally going to have you feeling pretty good in the water. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well. But it goes both ways though. In the kind of the counterculture of surfing at the moment, you have shapers all up and down the coast doing stuff in their backyards, going back to that 90s era. Logo up the nose, no wider than 18.5, minimum 6'1", 2.25 or 2 5/16, glass in fins. And look, the only thing I'd say about that is that there's a time and a place. And if you're fortunate enough to have the capacity to own a few boards, I'd recommend having one of them as well. I will sound like a good politician there. You need it all.
How long do you think people need to give new boards? How many sessions do you think they need to give them just to work out whether it's going to work or not?
Yeah, well, a pro surfer generally puts a board under their arm and will know. For everyone else on the planet, I'd say at least a week or two, which means a session every second day would be nice. Obviously not ideal. Some people don't have that time, but at least a good handful of surfs for sure.
I definitely saw some benefit to being on the longer, knifier board, and not necessarily in that given session, but afterwards. I've had some sessions since where the little tips or aha moments have really helped me find consistency in my surfing. Whether it's double pumping on my backhand or trying to draw out some longer lines on my forehand, it has definitely helped me edge a little closer to where I want to be. And I guess one thing that I need to remind myself is that surfing is first and foremost about having fun. And it's also relative. If I constantly compare myself to the best surfers in the world, then I'm probably just going to end up miserable. This is entirely my own journey, and perhaps just reiterating the fun component, I can reignite that spark.
What would you do if one of your surfers came to you like in a bit of a rut, performance-wise? They're sort of having issues with whatever. What would you do to help them out of that rut?
There's only so much you really can do, and surfing isn't rocket science. Even though sometimes we definitely overcomplicate it. One thing that I like to do is, and I've already spoken about it, is trying out a longer board. Now the longer boards that are made for waves, say in the 6 foot plus range for Hawaii and Indonesia, they can feel a little clunky under the arm, but they are made to rip. They're not made just to go in a straight line. So I love throwing the guys and girls that I'm working with on some longer equipment from time to time just to keep it fresh. Because as I mentioned earlier, you go and jump back on your normal board after riding a 2 or 3 inch step up, you're gonna feel pretty good.
I just finished up one of the better sessions that I've had for the year, and it was actually done on my prototype signature board, which I'm super excited to hopefully release to you guys by the end of the year. I think so often I forget that it's the waves which determine the surfing that you can do. In excellent waves, you might be able to surf at an excellent level. In average waves, you're probably just going to surf at an average level. And I think maybe taking it easy on yourself is a good step in ensuring that you do have the most fun possible. And perhaps being on the right board. Finding consistency in surfing is hard, and that's why I love to even the playing field with surf skating. The clients who I've taught to surf skate improve the fastest and have the most fun, which is why I put together the Ultimate Surf Skate program. It's a controlled system to rapidly progress your on-wave surfing abilities. Check it out in the description below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join me on Instagram at Kale's Broccoli. I'll see you guys soon.